Welcome to the Lucy Vaughn channel. Join us as we take a magical adventure through transformational stories where imagination meets reality and unique paths reveal visions beyond the ordinary. Today we are diving into real-life tales of guests who have embraced controversy, creativity, and their own spirituality to rise above challenges. These are the stories that stir curiosity, ignite imagination, and remind us of the power we all hold. So get ready to explore the unknown and awaken the magic within. This is more than a show, it's a journey into wonder and possibility. Let's unlock some magic. Hi, welcome to the Lucy Vaughn channel. Today we're going to be discussing personal growth, a journey of a Satanist. Today we are diving into the personal growth and journey of a Satanist. Joining us today is a founder of Reno Satanic, Jason Miller. Hi, Jason.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad.
So Jason has helped. What was that?
I said I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So Jason has helped co-publish books with Shane Bugbee, a couple books with Shane Bugbee, has performed a satanic invocation for the opening of Washoe County Commissioner meeting, and was featured on the Reno Channel 2 News, as well as you helped us with Witches Sabbath 3 in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'd like to start off from the very beginning. In the beginning, where were you born and raised?
I'm a Nevada native. I've been in Reno, Nevada for the last 29 years.
Yeah. What was life like out there in Reno?
It was quiet out in the valleys, continuous growth in the city.
It's called the biggest little city, or what is it called?
Yeah, Reno is the biggest little city in the world.
Biggest little city. Yeah. So what was your family life growing up?
Normal blue collar workers, working class family.
Mhm.
Me, my mom, my dad, and my sister.
Yeah. And so what was like the religion in your was there religion in your family? How did you feel about religion like at a young age?
As a very young kid, I always was fascinated with science and biology. It wasn't until about middle school years where my mother said, "Why don't you go down to the local church that's around the corner and try to make friends with some of the church kids?" So we had this little Christian Nazarene church around the corner, and they offered free pizza on Wednesday. So it was like, okay, cool, I'm getting fed. I could take a look at what this is, but other than that, I've always had a questioning mind. Never really um, saw saw it as this is for me.
Was
And
there
then
like a
growing up with, say again,
go ahead, no, go ahead.
uh, and then just growing up, um, kept going to the church because there's music, free food, and a lot of my social group that I went to high school with was a lot of kids in the neighborhood who ended up going to the church group. So it wasn't
Yeah,
until young adult I broke away from that and went down my own path.
that's cool. That's good. And you sometimes I have people on there here that have had like a history with addiction, and that's one thing I like having like the variety on here is you don't have that history.
No, I've never really felt the need for substance to be used. It's not anything I have against it. It's just it's just not for me.
Yeah. You didn't have that trait, right? So what does Satanism mean to you?
Well, Satanism is Satanism, founded by Anton LaVey. It's things that we enjoy in this one and only life that we get. It's the carnal desires and being the best individual that you could possibly make yourself into.
And what is that like? What does that mean for you? What does that look like for you in your life?
I mean, for me, Oscar Wilde has a great saying: "There's only ever going to be one you. Everyone else is already taken."
So I feel like you're saying that Satanism has helped you just like own who you are.
Yes.
Yes. All right. And what's some of the history in Reno? Like I
Oh,
know we were discussing
there's a
some of the
lot
underground history that
of
not many
history.
people know about.
Yeah, there's a lot of underground history here. Um, for example, during the McMartin preschool case, Raymond Buckey was one of the family members that was accused of the satanic panic crime of the McMartin preschool case. He was up at Lake Tahoe for a conference the weekend that he was arrested on those charges. And then back in the, I'm going to say, I don't even know the year off the top of my head, but Frank Sinatra Jr.'s son was kidnapped. And when they held the ransom, they said, "Meet me at this gas station." Well, there was two of those gas stations. One was in Carson City, the other one was in Reno. They didn't know which one, so they ended up driving from Lake Tahoe down to Carson City to the gas station. Turns out it was the wrong gas station.
That sounds
And
about
then
right,
there's
right?
another little tidbit is L. Ron Hubbard had a hideout here, out in the city of Sparks, which is right next door to Reno. Um,
Mhm.
and when he was on the run from the FBI, he had a safe house out here in the Sparks area.
That is interesting. See, you were telling me all this and I didn't know about that. That's really cool. There's a story that I have heard where Anton LaVey and L. Ron Hubbard knew each other, and I guess before L. Ron Hubbard got all his millions of dollars, they he had borrowed some money from Anton, right? So Anton ran into him like later on in life when he had made his millions, and he was like, "Hey, what's up with my $10?" And I guess Hubbard just like walked by him and just ignored him. It's pretty funny. Yeah.
Gotta respect it though.
Yeah, right? Okay, so tell me more about life in Reno. Like the
Well,
nightlife culture. What's it like out there?
so as our nightlife, it's of course we always have the casinos. The casinos are always popping. Our bar life is always fun for weekend activities. We always have our fun days up at Lake Tahoe, which clearest and cleanest water in the state. So we get to brag about that. And then Reno is just a beautiful place, a tranquility for art to be able to flow. You feel
Mhm,
a oneness to the desert, and the desert
mhm.
is just a calming place to be. But it's also a harsh environment if you're not prepared for it.
It's very rural and agriculture out there, isn't it?
Not so much agriculture, there's a lot of emptiness, a lot of open space that hasn't really been developed. There's two or three Delta hubs here in the entire state, and then the rest are just towns that you drive through, but they
Hmm.
all have a little bit of life to them that make them unique.
I know when I was living up there for a little while, because I've done business back and forth between Northern California and out here in Southern California. I've lived out there for a little bit. And I know there's a lot of of stories of like Sasquatches and UFO and a lot of ET activity. What do you think about that? Have you heard
I
anything about
mean,
that?
Area 51 is here in Nevada, so you always have those uh, fun interactions with the people claiming to see UFOs and extraterrestrial. And California Redwood Forest is only a few hours drive north of Sacramento, so you always have that nice forest area. So who knows what's bumping around up there?
And there's something about being out there, like when you're away from the city, you're away from LA, you're away from the crowded people, the towers, the electromagnetic fields, you know? I feel like there's a much more connectedness to like the sky and the land and all that stuff, but you just feel like there's something else going on. Like that you're kind of disconnected to being around so many people and so much when there's so much activity in the environment.
Well, I feel like with the vastness of the desert up here, you're not completely alone. There's life all
Hmm.
around you, everywhere that you look. And it may not be what you're accustomed to, especially being from a big city or a small cow town or a flyover state, but there's life growing even in the most harshest of climates.
Hmm. Yeah. It's a definitely like a beautiful area, most definitely. All right. Now I want to get into the meat and potatoes. Reno Satanic. How did that come about?
So, growing up and being on my own journey in life, there was never really anything here as far as like left hand path of growing and trying to have your own uh your own structure. And so when, of course, being young and seeing other groups pop up here and there around the country, it's like, well, fine, if no one else is going to do it, might as well have someone do it correctly and try to do their best to explain uh, what Satanism or the satanic path is for one's own self. And so, since no one else was doing it, I took the reins and said, you know what, I'm going to do it. So, me and a couple friends who are interested in occultism, Satanism, esoteric stuff. And so we created the group in its early days as a way of communication of how do we communicate these types of things to other people? What is a hub where we could start connecting and start building connections with other people who are like-minded or enjoy these types of topics and not feel a sense of judgment from people who don't understand these types of things. And so we started it as a way of communicating it to other like-minded people in the Reno area. And then we branched out and started with one of our first events was, hey, if the local religious groups here aren't holding up their end of the bargain, let's try to coerce them to do their own thing. And we participated in an event that was called the Mass Feeding of the Homeless. And what we ended up doing was passing out feminine products as other people were passing out food. We were passing out sanitizing kits, things that everyone wants to say, here's food, but here's actually tools that you could use to help better yourself, is the way that we went about it. As, hey, look, food is great, but the only way that you're going to continue on is if you do something for yourself. Here's some tools to help you to at least make it comfortable and continuing on doing what you need to do for yourself. And so that was our first event, and that actually drew a couple people who were curious minded about what the Reno Satanic group was. They're like, "Are you guys on? What's the word? Um, Pathantry? Not pathantry. The word escapes me. The anthropist. Um, and that's
Philanthropist?
not. Yeah, and that's not quite the right word to describe it. It's look, I want to help those who want to help themselves. If
Mm-hmm.
someone's not willing to put in the work, then they're just a drain. And not to say that as crudely, but it's truly how it is. How do you expect to help someone if they don't want to even help themselves? And so it's not so much about a charity outreach. It's, hey, look, we understand the situation sucks. Here's a here's some curious minds and it might pique your interest. And just like how I found Satanism to be a better individualist to myself, I'm not trying to say, hey, it might be right for you. And so that was one of our core things starting the group is look, we're not here to tell people, um, join Satanism. It could be perfect for you. Look how well it did for me. It's, hey, it's a tool. And here's how you could use it. Think about it as we are on the Oregon Trail. We are just a uh, market on the side of the road to help you guide you on your path. And so
Mm-hmm.
we were open to how many different people wanted to understand left hand path. And one of our major things was there's more than one right way to live your life. And so that started resonating with a lot of people. And as this time we're seeing the Hail Satan documentary come out by Kevin Sully and Doug Mesner's group, the Satanic Temple. And since we were already doing our thing before that movie came out, we're like, okay, well, what's this group about? And so a lot of people to this day still confuse us with them. We are not them. And
And I just want to clarify that because I've had people here that are theistic Satanists. Your group is non-theistic.
as the group itself and how we organize, yes, we are non-theistic. We
And
don't
can you
care if
explain what
you
that
are,
means?
we don't care if someone is theistic minded. If you
Mm-hmm.
need that for yourself, then more power to you. It's just not how we run our group.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the difference between theistic being that a theistic Satanist believes in an actual Satan
Correct.
that they
It's more
have
devil
a
worship.
spiritual relationship, I would say, with, right? And a non-theistic, you are more it's more about self-empowerment, correct?
Correct. I would say that's pretty close.
Pretty basic. Yeah, I just want
Yeah.
to try to things down kind of basic for people that really don't understand this. Because me and you, we could sit here and understand this all day long, but I think there's people out there that are not going to really have that much of understanding. So it's nice to have that breakdown. One of the
Right.
things you were
And
just saying that I really liked, and that really stands out to me, and I was just talking to you this about before the show, is there's so many people like that I run into that they don't know who I am or what I do, and they're just kind of expressing themselves and how the way the religions that they were raised with never didn't resonate to them, or it just never sat right with them, and they've turned away from that and just are really trying to seek something else out there. And I love the fact that on your website it says there's to challenge the thought that there is only one right way to live one's life, and to create a space for members and allies to experience an authentic reason based non-theistic religious community. And I like that because whether people decide to come to Satanism or not, or if it's for them or if it's their cup of tea, the thing that I like, the common ground, is that it defies like the rules and the mentality where you have to choose one of these things that already exist. Like it pretty much is setting up an example. Like you can create something that works for you. It doesn't have to be Satanism. It doesn't have to be organized religion. It could be a path that just you could create yourself that helps you to be the highest aspect or to grow, bring personal growth in your life ability. And I really like that. That's something that really stuck out to me. Yeah. So how was there like something that happened in your life that was just like you really wanted to start this organization to like empower other people?
Well,
Or was it
yeah.
more just to build like a community?
Well, I feel like a lot of people, when they leave the religion that it was either the religion of their parents and try to branch out for themselves and they're on their own path and wandering, a lot of people are still stuck to their old religious views solely for the community aspect. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
with Satanism, it's about bolstering the individual to be okay with being yourself. And it's okay not needing a community at large to be your personality. But it's
Mm-hmm.
nice to know that there are other people out there who are, I would say, not exactly you, but they find the same interests that you find interesting. And it's
Mm-hmm.
always fun to not just be in an echo chamber and just thinking of your own stuff. It's fun to challenge these aspects because if it's something that you truly believe in, it's not, hey, let me go look out and find things that support my theory. Let's go out to find things that challenge my theory. And because if the theory is correct, it should be able to hold its own against all scrutiny.
So let's talk about you ending up on Channel 2 News because I love this story. Let's start from the beginning, how it all happened.
Well, I've been on Channel 2 News twice now. The first one was back in January of 2024, where I broke international headlines as being the first Satanist to give an invocation in front of the county commissioner meeting. So back in 2023, County Commissioner Clara Andriola decided that she felt so inspired by the National Prayer Breakfast that she wanted to install religious prayer as part of the morning uh, itinerary for the county commissioner meeting. They meet twice a month and they will only have these prayers once a month. And so, of course, you're always going to see your Christians, your Catholics, maybe a rabbi priest every once in a while. We have another, um, a Buddhist here by the name Zed, who is world famous for doing these invocations. And so I'm like, you know what? Might as well. Let If someone's going to do it, might as well do it correctly. And so I gave the invocation after one of my associates said, "Hey, did you see this?" I'm like, "No, I did not see this." They sent me the information on how to sign up. I signed up, signed my name on the paper, said I'm with this group, and I get an email back saying, "Okay, what day you want to do it?" So I was thinking, okay, let's do October of 2023. Well, that one's already taken, but we have the beginning of next year. How about January? So I'm like, okay, let's kick off next year with a bang. So come January, after I've already filled out all the forms, making sure that, yes, I'm going to be there, I go in, I go up to the lady at the desk, say, "Hey, my name is Jason. I'm here to give the invocation." "Oh, great." Hands me a microphone. I asked, "Is there a certain place that you guys want me to stand when directed to?" They're like, "Oh, yeah, we'll." Most people either go up to the diocese, which is like these little wood blocks at the front, and you could see that in the video. Um, and then they said, "Okay." They go through the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone stand. They say, "Okay, now we're going to go into our invocation." Uh, the leader of the uh, council literally just has my name on a sticky note. No one knows who I am, what group I'm with, and to act the most professional I possibly could, because that's what I'm there to do. I was there to do something professional and not make it a circus act. So I get up there, explain who I am, I'm with what group, let us begin. I give the invocation, and no one in that crowd was ready at all to hear what they heard. And as I wrote out everything in that invocation as not only things that have inspired me on my own path in life, but things that everyone could agree on. We want logic in government. We want understanding. We don't want oppression. We want people to think for themselves and not have something dictated to them. We only get this one glorious life that we live. So why not live it to the fullest? And then everyone in that chamber, all they heard was, "In the spirit of the unconquerable sun, bringer of light and knowledge, hail Satan." That's all they fucking heard. So as soon as that, close the book, and I walk out because I had no other business there at the county commissioner meeting. And that opened up almost 6 hours of public comment before they were even able to just get to the agenda.
Okay, so who was in the crowd?
So if you watch the video from Washoe County Commissioners meeting, which has the full invocation, not just the snippet from the Channel 2 news, right there in the front row, the guy with the beard and the black shirt, that is a gentleman by the name Robert Beadle, a crypto millionaire. He made millions off of cryptocurrency and moved to Reno and started basically trying to buy media. He was trying to start lawsuits against election fraud, and as far as I could say, allegedly was responsible for putting a tracking device on the mayor's car. And that lawsuit has been dismissed.
And you were telling me that this guy just went off the deep end and thought this was a whole conspiracy, right?
He thought Andriola invited me personally to go give this invocation. He had no idea who I was. I was talking to him before. I had no idea who he was. And I'm just sitting there talking to him because he brought his dog in there. And I'm like, "Oh, I love animals. What a cute dog." So he had no idea who I was. I had no idea who he was until another associate afterwards. He's like, "Do you understand who that is? That's like this really high-end, weird conspiracy theorist guy." I'm like, "I have no idea."
That's funny. That's hilarious. Did you ever talk to him after that? Did he ever
No,
try to contact you?
no.
Hmm. So interesting.
I really don't have the need to. So
I have to say, like, that just sounds like the perfect satanic story. Only does stuff happen to like that to us in the satanic world or in the magical world, we're just like all those little coincidences aligned. Anybody else would be like, that was not a coincidence. You planned that out. But it's like, no, that's just kind of stuff that happens in like a magical life.
And I feel like that's one of the greatest things about life. Life is so chaotic. Everyone always wants to try to create structure and meaning to it instead of experiencing it and living it.
It's a good book. That's gonna be a good movie one day. Let's move on to your books, the books that you help publish. I would like to start off with The Devil's Avenger. Tell us about that book.
So, The Devil's Avenger is one of those very underground books. Unless you grew up knowing the entirety of Anton LaVey's autobiography, um, it's a book that was so limited that not very many people were able to get a copy. And so I wrote this as the epilogue in the end of the book as well, is how the book came to be. And it's right there above me as the Devil's Avenger, and it's nice bright red format. And so with that, the original Satanic Bible's um, introduction was written by a gentleman named Burton H. Wolfe. He was also the first person to write the first biography about Anton LaVey before leaving the Church of Satan in 1974, I believe. And that's when Michael Aquino started uh, becoming a high priest. He did a new introduction, and then when Aquino left, it went back to Burton H. Wolfe's introduction up until LaVey's passing, until Peter H. Gilmore takes over the as High Magus, and then he writes the new current introduction to the Satanic Bible. And so, as the book is, as he is a reporter, he's documenting LaVey. He's asking LaVey about his life story as he writes the first biography about Anton LaVey, his lion taming days, growing up with his uncle, going overseas, helping Israel import guns as they're trying to rebuild Europe after World War II, his young childhood, his parents, growing up having a quick fling with Marilyn Monroe. It has a chapter about um, James Mansfield, and about her tragic end. And it kind of leaves off in 1974. It's literally the go-to book if you want to know the early life of Anton LaVey. Unfortunately, after Burton leaves the Church of Satan, the publisher, Pyramid Publishing, decided to pull all the unsold books because at that time in the 1970s, it was quite a blasphemous thing to put out a satanic book, and it would literally ruin people's careers. It would ruin people's lives at that time. And so the publisher pulls the book, buys up all the unsold copies, and then burns them. So no one is able to get them. Burton Wolfe wasn't able to buy a bunch of copies to be able to sell. Anton LaVey wasn't able to buy up a bunch of copies to sell. And so it was literally left in the hands of book collectors. And if you're lucky enough to get one, that was the only way you would know the early days of Anton LaVey's life. And so for 50 years, it's been out of print. No one has picked it up. There was one person who decided to do one in Germany, which kind of gets away with the copyright laws. And then for the 50th year anniversary, me and Shane, after communicating for a while, decide let's do this as a dedication piece, not only for the 50-year anniversary, but as a way to celebrate the Witches' Sabbath. And that's how I got involved with doing Witches' Sabbath down there in LA with you guys this year.
It's really cool. And you guys have another book as well, right? A cookbook that you're coming out with? Or is that already
Yes,
out?
the book is out and it is available at bombassrecipes.com.
And what kind of recipes can we look forward to?
So the fun of this book is it is a cookbook, an actual cookbook. And this is where I got featured on Channel 2 News for the second time, as a reporter came to my house and we went over some of the history of the Weather Underground and who Bill Eyre and Bernadine Dorn is. And these recipes were collected by Shane in 2019 from their home during an estate sale. And so these are recipes from the kitchen of Bill Ayres and Bernadine Dorn. And so it has an exclusive interview between Shane and Bill Ayre and a bunch of really nutritious recipes from people who had to spend 10 years on the run from the FBI's top 10 most wanted list.
Wow.
For those who don't know who Bill Ayres or Bernadine Dorn, they were leaders of a group called the Weather Underground, which claimed 25 bombings between the years 1969 to 1977, 78,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them being a judge's home, one of them being a state house, and their biggest known one is they put a bomb in the Pentagon, blowing a
Wow.
hole in the Pentagon women's bathroom.
And this was confirmed and found?
Yes. So
Dang,
they
that's
spend 10 years on the run from the FBI's top 10 most wanted. The FBI could not catch these guys. They had to go through illegal means, even wiretaps, bribery, and trying to catch them, but they couldn't. After 10 years on the run, Bernadine and Bill Ayres decide to surrender. They turn themselves in and they're like, okay, we're going to face the courts. The FBI goes before the court and drops all charges against them because the FBI didn't want to go on record saying that they had to break the law to try to catch these guys.
what?
So they got away with it.
That is insane.
And to be honest, I didn't even know who these guys were.
Yeah, no, I've never heard about them either. That
So
is interesting. I obviously that's why they don't want nobody hearing about these people or knowing about who they are because of what. You know what? That's funny. I've heard stories from acquaintances um, that they've gone through similar things, that they did some criminal activity and then they got caught, but then they'd never press charges on them because they were either embarrassed that they were able to like play the system to get away with so much and they didn't want the public knowing that they did so much stuff and they like right under the noses of the government and they didn't find out, or they had to like find illegal means of ways of catching them and then they would just let them go because they didn't want to release it to the public. So that's really
yeah,
funny.
and it's amazing how it is, and it's amazing how laws work. If you have the money, you find loopholes in laws. But if you don't have the funds, you become property of the state.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so, but they did something with their second chance instead of spending the rest of their lives behind bars. Bernadine becomes a lawyer for juvenile youths to try to put them on the right track to keep them out of the criminal system. And
Mm-hmm,
Bill
mm-hmm.
Ayres becomes an educator uh, as a college professor at a university.
And how are they making a living while they were on the run?
Small jobs. They worked with blue collar people. They worked with the lowest class and understanding um, class differences. They knew what it was because what the Weather Underground was is they were a civil rights group. They were using their white privilege to be voices for the minority of the black communities, sort of like the White Panthers. They
Mhm,
were a leftist Marxist group um, trying to make change. And so they wanted to make a quick end of the civil, or not civil war, the Vietnam War,
mhm,
because they knew that they had to do something quickly because during that time they would broadcast the names of soldiers who've died in Vietnam on the evening news, and seeing that 2,000 people a day dying, if they didn't do something quick, that 2,000 people a day adds up really quickly.
mhm, mhm,
And so they felt like they had to act and do something big to be able to get attention to this. And so
mhm.
they create the group called the Weather Underground or the Weathermen.
Hmm. Very interesting. Yeah. I know there was talk about the Zodiac killer being a part of the Satanic Church, or that they had the CIA, or there was ties to CIA. Which, if you have, what's his name, McQuino. If you have a Quino, like he was tied in the military and stuff like that, so it makes sense that they would have people in government and the CIA and the original Church of Satan, right?
Well, it was kind of a weird thing.
There was a lot of high profile,
A
very
lot of,
influential people that were part of the original Church of Satan, that just didn't want their identity released.
right. Because again, like I was saying earlier, with how the book was being boycotted, The Devil's Avenger, being an out Satanist during the 70s and 80s could ruin your career. And a lot of people couldn't risk that. So I
Mhm,
being now in the 21st century, it's a whole different ballgame that no one really bats an eye at it anymore. So it's the old saying, they cleared the path so that the next generation can run it and be authentic to themselves.
mhm, mhm. And I think it's really funny because, like, I feel like there's a lot of different groups popping up nowadays that don't call themselves Satanists, but like it's all right there, like where they're about self empowerment and pretty much like the pillars of Satanism, just without the Satanism on it. What do you think?
Well, yes, there's always going to be uh, people mimicking past groups. I always see it as the highest form of flattery. You've made an improvement on someone else's life, and now they're using it as a tool to help them in their own path in life.
Mhm, mhm, who is it? Amber Rose. She uh, she did an interview with Lucian Greaves. And I thought that was really cool because she's an atheist, but she was agreeing with a lot of, and I know that Satanic Temple is different from the Church of Satan and a lot of the other organizations. I know there's a lot of controversy there, but I think it's really cool how it's like becoming more mainstream. Satanism become more mainstream, much more accepted, and people kind of like looking past the whole propaganda that the church tries to do against it and seeing the more logical side of it. What do you think?
I could debate against it and for it, but yeah,
Yeah. I mean, either way, like I feel like even though there's different sects, so many different sects of Satanism nowadays, like at the end of the day, I think we all have experienced this similar lashback of claiming the path that we've claimed, you know? So I think it's cool that we're just finding a lot more acceptance with it in the mainstream, and it's kind of opening doors for a lot of the younger generations to kind of like look at what I like to call alternative paths. Um, because I know even Zena, she talked about it in her interview that she just did, you know, talking about what you were just touching on, like how back then it was just a dangerous thing that a lot of lives were like ruined because of Satanism, or they had claimed to be Satanists, and a lot of lives were ruined.
yeah, there was an entire period between a lot of people want to say it's from the 80s, 90s satanic panic, but with most of the titles, I would say it started mid 60s, early 70s. And then that was the foundation of it. And then the hysteria just broke loose in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I know like the people I've talked with that are Satanists, like public about it, I think more so nowadays it's more conflict within families, you know, but it's like I would say it's kind of like politics is nowadays, you know, it separates families, separates people. But I liked how you were saying, you know, those negative people that don't accept that, like they're negative, like they're just people trying to hold you back from being who you are and grow into who you want to be. And that's like, I feel like that's an unfair sense of control of trying to dominate people or trying to tell them who they need to be and just not letting somebody be okay being who they want to be.
Right. You only get one life.
Mm-hmm.
Do it what makes you happy as long as you just make no harm to other people. Don't
Mm-hmm.
make harm to yourself. Be the best you that you could possibly be.
And I find it's a lot of artists in the satanic group. And I think that resonates with you as well, right? Like you're an artist, an author, and as a magician, from what you've explained to me, that all of that plays tightly together. Like when you go into your ritual area, into your chamber, like that's you connecting with yourself and your art form and just being able to just be in that space of creation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, someone who has ADHD from a very young age, diagnosed with it, I make chaos of life flow. It's not about letting chaos control, it's letting yourself be creative out of chaos and being able to put that through art, through painting, through sculpture making, through writings, through literature, music is probably one of the most creative things that any artist can do. There's tons of different aspects of art, but when you create it for your own pleasure, I think that's personal and it's something that needs to be focused on as it's for yourself. Other people can enjoy it or other people can have discuss with it, but at the end of the day it's how you felt making it. Art is always subjective because everyone's going to have their own opinion about it, but what was the intent, what was the emotion, what was the thought? That's the thing that entices me behind looking at art, because I want to look at the person as an individual and where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I know talking with Shane and with other artists, I think from my perspective is I feel there's so much more in art and ritual that touches deep down into a psyche that's just so healing and transcending for a person, and tapping into that higher consciousness, just helps you grow. And I find that it just has a real, through life, we all go through different traumas and PTSD, and art has a way of just releasing that without words, those
Right. And
emotions,
that's
those pent up
how
things,
the
and that's
ritual
that's
chamber should
so
be.
healthy. Yeah. So, and that's why, like, I'm just such a big advocate for our path, is because I feel like there's so much more there that in the future they'll probably scientifically come out and be like, oh, have a whole scientific explanation for it. And I find it interesting that I've even been finding different people out there talking about um, religious trauma therapy of blasphemy and all these things. And, I feel like the generations today have a lot of trauma around religion. And I think that's just becoming, I find it to be such a more prominent discussion nowadays. And I think that touches upon the ritual you performed and you were teaching, right? What was the name of it that you called the name of the ritual?
Oh, the reverse communion.
Yes.
So we did that one at Northern Nevada Pride Festival, and it was a way that a lot of people from the LGBTQ community is able to reconcile with their own religious trauma. And it's a way for them to understand I get to claim these things for myself. I'm not letting it control me. I'm taking responsibility as the individual for these things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's not just going to be a magical thing where it's a one and done thing. It takes work, and that's the beauty of behind it, is you are able to work through it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I find that's very interesting because what I'm thinking of right now is coming to mind for me is in Freemasonry, they even have where when the initiate goes to initiation, they go through a death,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much where that death symbolizes like everything you knew you're going to unlearn and you're going to be learning the magical way of life, right? So that includes religion, that includes all these programming you received growing up and then from past lives. And then we'll even go to we're gonna even talk about the Bible on this, because even in the Bible it talks about where somebody needs to die to their old life to ascend. And let's go in the form that the Bible is magical text, right? To be able to grow in spirit, which is, I would say, is kind of like in the magical term in spirit, when you're manipulating energy, you have to like unlearn all that programming in order to evolve and to ascend to become your highest self, right? So to me, like that's what I can relate the communion that you're talking about too, is just like those things that have kind of been evident throughout older texts and cultures and societies.
Well, the normal communion, as most people know it, is transubstantiation, where the body of Christ is becoming part of you through the bread, through the
Mm-hmm,
communion wafer. And then the wine is the blood of Christ.
mm-hmm,
The reverse communion is, look, we as individuals take responsibility for our actions. We as individuals take responsibility for what we do for ourselves, because no God on high is going to do it for us. We do it
mm-hmm,
for ourselves. We enjoy the indulgence of the drinking of the wine, and so we'll leave that cup dry and that cracker stomped underfoot.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, for people out there that are new to magic or just curious, do you have any magical advice you can give them?
When it comes as being an atheist, because all Satanists are atheists or atheists, is the fact that being an atheist, magic is not something that is what we see in movies like Hocus Pocus or uh, Bewitched. Magic is your environment, your state of mind, your intent, and understanding that you are doing these things to bring catharsis to yourself, and to empower yourself to be a better you, kind of the pep talk that you need for yourself to motivate yourself to do the things that you want to do and your carnal and desires and goals in life and how you set out to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, an easy way that I like to explain magic to people is it's like a sense of Disneyland. You immerse yourself in a realm of your own creation. There's magic in the air. You could smell the cinnamon in the air. You're in a land where people are in costumes, but no, those are the actual characters from your favorite movies. And you're understanding, yes, you are in your own total environment and enjoying for yourself. And then you take that as a way of building yourself up and then going out into the world being a better you than when you came into your ritual chamber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I find it so fascinating because you hear these gurus teaching, saying they have these magical formulas. And it's all about visualization, visualizing it so much that it becomes real to you. And I feel like that's what magic is, when you go into your chamber, you're visualizing it, you're creating so much sensation that your senses believe it, you're programming your body and your mind um, to attract these energies to manifest in your life. So when you go out of there, it's like it's released into the universe, and now it just comes in, or you program yourself to where it's like it's going to manifest, right?
Right. Like these are your desires, these are the things you want. It's not a bad thing to want things out of life. Be greedy about the things that you want. It's not a bad thing. And so, if you want something, set your mind on how to understand what's the best way to do it for yourself. As long as you do no harm to others, you're free to do it.
And I think that's like one of the beautiful things about magic is, well, I know for me, it's like I start seeing that like the universe conspires with us when we put the energy out there and we do our ritual. The energy conspires to work with the energies to manifest those things, to create it, right? Like it's a two-part thing, but it's to me it just it breaks the mold of everything you're taught, raised to believe about how reality works, about how the world works. When you see the results through magic, you're like, okay, like that's not correct. Like there's something to this. And you can't necessarily always explain it, but when stuff happens that you did something in your ritual chamber that helped bring that about. And that's one of the really fun things about magic. So, do you have a magical ritual you can share with us?
Well, like we were talking about earlier, we were talking about the reverse communion. And the, this ritual, I always like to show newcomers for the simple reason it's quick and it's understandable what the intent is. And so it's a good way to explain what intent is to newcomers who've never worked ritual or never worked magic for themselves. And by doing that, everyone knows the Catholic communion. You take the bread, you eat it, it becomes a symbolic representation of Christ being part of you. You are part of Christ. And you drink the blood of Christ to wash away the sin and take on the bloodshed that was spilled to be your redeemer. As we do the reverse communion, it's not as a way of trying to flip and be the opposite of Christianity. It's a tool to empower oneself to saying, I do these things because no God above me or below me is going to do it for me. I need to be the one who takes these responsibilities on myself, and whatever actions come from this, I have to deal with the reactions because I can't scapegoat it on, oh, the devil made me do it. And so by doing that, you are taking control of the body of Christ. You take a communion wafer, you smash it, spit on it, stomp on it, wipe your ass with it, do whatever you want to defile it, as saying, no, there's more than one right way to live your life. Indulge in the wine, drink the wine for pleasure and indulgence, and enjoy it as the fruits of nature, not as to wash you clean. Be who you are. We are human beings. We are animals on this planet, and it's okay to be that way.
Mm, I like that. I like that. I was actually just talking about that today. Um, we were in a discussion and some stuff came up and like I feel that's one thing that religion has most definitely for me always made me feel that from the very beginning I was just a mess for being born a human being. Like I was like you're basically told you're a sin for being born a human being, right? And that's psychologically that's not good, right? And
There's this great meme. It's a baby. It's like original sin. What did I do? I just got here.
right? And I feel like as I've gone on my journey, I've found what I would call my spirituality, my magic. And it's not, there's no like, I can't fit in a box and I can't describe people what it is. I just know what the experience is, and it's not controlled by a God of religion, of fear and condemnation. It's just an experience. It's living life to its fullest and creating and getting results from that and seeing that I don't need to have that, And I like just how you said that, like we're all humans. We're all here on this earth and we're living a human mess, we're not perfect. And that's cool. Like it's okay. That's okay. It's okay to be that and to own that and to be okay with that and to enjoy life, you
Yeah.
know?
And as soon as you own that, you're already on the right path of being the best you that you could possibly be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like that. I think that's a very satanic thing to end with. All right. Would
Mm.
you do the honors and help Satan us out?
Do you have a countdown or just want me to say?
It's up to you. Yeah.
Well, in the spirit of the unconquerable sun, bringer of light and knowledge, we say Shemham Farash. Hail Satan!
Hell Satan.